Hey there, guys. So I know that at least some of you have spent some time watching my earlier videos talking about the narrative behind Football Manager, talking about how you can sort of make the game a little bit easier, more interesting to play, and much more interesting to think about by getting deep into the storyline. You might be wondering how in the world you can do that. For a long time, I was wondering how in the world you could do that as well. I mean, you see stuff on YouTube, you see people making a story out of the game, but it doesn't always go necessarily as deep as it could, and oftentimes you feel like your content creators are kind of trying to just get to the next level, to the next step. They don't take a lot of time really digging into the story. Let me show you an example of something that's a little bit different. So we're going to go through one of these early stories from FM Stories. This is on the Sports Interactive Community Forums. I'm going to put a link down below in the description so you can read this on your own. This is by Scott Lee SV, playing over in Luton Town. Now, Luton Town is interesting because they're actually in the Premier League today. If you're like me and you're kind of an idiot and you don't know anything about anything that's happened, you're like, well, what was so interesting about them back in 2009? Well, this is around the time that they went into, I think it was administration, and they were in danger of being knocked out of the Football League. In fact, I think they were for a little while before finally coming back. And boy, it's been a interesting 15 years or so as they've had things turned around. So I love how this story starts off, right? So there's a little bit of a preamble here. But it starts off with, how does a manager with no experience get a job like this? Easy. You apply for it and hope you get lucky. It's that simple. Then he introduces himself a little bit. It's just great. Excellent opening. Gets your attention, and then talks right away about how relegation is almost a certainty for the 2008-09 season. Any self-respecting manager coming to Luton would have to accept that to take this job would be like having the words, took Luton out of the Football League, instantly tattooed over his CV. And who wants that? Well, apparently this guy wanted it. Just excellent, very, very good writing. There's nothing here that's like literally complicated or anything like that. It's just good writing. It's interesting to read. It's fun. And a lot of people read this thread, especially when it was around, when it was still current, I should say. I love what he does here. I love how he talks about the interview process, which, as you know, doesn't actually exist in Football Manager when you create a new save, right? So you have to, come up with something up in your noggin. Talks about his first team squad. Talks about how there's no office. Whoops. And then talks a little bit more about what people are saying about him on the online forums. As if the 30-point penalty isn't bad enough, we've now been given a manager who's never managed. This new chairman doesn't care one iota about this football club. When you think of all the high-quality managers we could have had, and instead we got Martin. And no, it's not James Martin the chef, although it might as well be. What a joke. We'll be lucky to get back to 0 this season, never mind stay up. And then information about the club and so on and so forth. This is really good. This is extremely well written. This is the sort of writing I wish I would do in my own saves. Very well done and very well thought out. And when you go through this, you can see there's office banter, there's him looking around at different people and stuff. I believe in this story that there's a little bit of romance that goes on, all sorts of other shenanigans. That makes this interesting. I don't know exactly how this was written, but I believe that the author of this decided that he was going to have a certain story outline and wanted to see where he was going to go with the save, and left the story open enough so that things could happen depending on what happened in the save, but also sort of guided it along. And he does a brilliant job of this, right? The expectations from the ownership comes in an email, that comes after his first and very bizarre interview with the owner. And then he gets into the training sessions, and then you see a little bit here about the beginning of the friendlies, and it turns into sort of this journal mode, and that's kind of how he takes this out from here on out. Very well written and very well put together, and this it keeps on this way until the end. It's about 3 years overall that this thread lasts, which is amazing because it's not really that long. And you can see here that, there's a little bit here at the end. They talk about who comes in to change this around and that around on the team. Luton were promoted to the championship at the end of the season, and so on and so forth. And it all comes to a happy ending, and Luton end up doing well. That's the thing that's so fascinating, I think, about this, which is that it all sort of comes out to a good and a suitable ending at the end, and it's all kind of packaged together. But the big question, of course, is, what can we learn from this other than here's something interesting to read, right? And that is that if you really want to take your Football Manager game to the next level, don't just settle for playing and being victorious and winning and all that stuff. I mean, any old fool can do that, right? We've already shown that you just have to know the right attributes and you have to have a tactic that's not awful and you'll be just fine, right? What really, really will set your save apart is if you get deep, deep down into the storyline, and if you have a storyline that lasts a while, if you have a place that you're going and something that you're making of it, and then if you share it with others, right? Anybody in 2009 could have just popped the game open and come out with a save and, oh, well, we didn't do so well at the start, or we did well in the end, or whatever, and then forget about it. This guy, Scott Lee SV, came out with a post that people are still reading to this day 15 years later. And he wrote it so well that it's kind of a small piece of literature in the football manager community. So that's one of the things that you can do to sort of get yourself deep into this. Now, I know that this video is a little different than what you normally see in the FM community. We're going to do more of this. We're going to look a little bit deeper into the world, the literary world of Football Manager, and talk about this stuff a little bit more, because nobody else wants to talk about it, so we might as well go ahead and do this. And I'll be honest with you, I myself have had thoughts in the past about trying to create this type of save. It's hard to do, it's hard to think of things, but if you do it right, and if you have a good plan, I think you can make it work, and I think you can make it really interesting. So we're going to see if we can do that sometime in the future. Not today, but stay tuned and see what comes our way. I'll talk with you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.